Back again for the final year is the 2023 Ford Mustang Mach 1. And I'm saying it's the last year because the S550, so the Mustang, the way that we know it, is changing. So it is going to be different when we look at the 2024 model, which is going to be released later on this year. So we should see the new one hit dealership showroom floors probably later on this summer. So the Mach 1 is essentially going to get replaced by the new Dark Horse. So whether you pick up a 2023 or you wait for a 2024 model is going to depend on what you like the look of and availability. And a few other questions you have to ask yourself too. But this one, like I said, is the Mach 1 Mustang, and it's in the dark matter gray metallic. Now the Mach 1 does have two different choices that are available in the sense that we've got packaged options. So it's either the 600 or the 700A. This one is the 600A, so the entry-level Mach 1, which means that we've got cloth seats on the inside and we don't have the flexibility to get some of the added packages. This one also has the 10-speed automatic transmission that is available optionally. I would personally go for the 6-speed instead, especially because we would have the Tremec inside of this thing versus the GetRag D4 that you're going to find inside of the regular GT. Matter of preference though, but I love the way the color looks inside of this thing. The dark gray metallic just pops. Underneath the hood of the Mustang, you technically have a few different options that are available, obviously depending on if you're looking at the EcoBoost, the GT, or the Mach 1. So the EcoBoost Mustang, you've got either the regular 2.3 liter, you've got the high performance package, which is going to give you a little bit of a bump in horsepower. And then when you look at the GT, you've got the 5-liter Coyote, which is technically the same engine you're going to find under the hood of the Mach 1. But here's the kicker. When we're under the hood of the Mach 1, we also have this cold air intake, which is what gives us that extra 20 horsepower in comparison. So the regular GT is 450 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque, versus the Mach 1 is going to be 470 horsepower, but that same 410 pound-feet of torque. So we do have pretty dang good power out of this thing. It's slightly less than if we were to look at, I think, the 2021 model. The 22s and then the 23s are slightly detuned in comparison. But if you're handy with a little ECU flash, you can get all that power back and more if you wanted to. But straightforward under the hood here, easily top up fluids as necessary. We do have this nice looking Mach 1 strut brace there. Really nice. Easily check change your oil along the side. And like I said, we do have our cold air intake off to the right-hand side here as well. But the question here of whether you look at the 2023 Mach 1 or if you wait for the 2024 Dark Horse is going to depend on what you care about inside of your vehicle. So under the hood, like I said, 470 horsepower, but the Dark Horse is going to be bumped up. Same Coyote V8, but you're going to be looking at about 500 horsepower in comparison. So it's a fairly significant jump. Now, having said that, you could easily get that same performance if you do an ECU tune. So stage 1 tune will push you probably up to like 510 horsepower, depending on which kit you go for. But I mean, like I said, it's going to be a matter of preference. Do you care about the styling? Like, do you like the look of the older Mustang, like this one, the Mach 1? Do you like the look of the newer, the 2024 instead? Because there are a few things you have to consider there. A lot of stuff on the inside when we get inside that I'm going to point out differences between 23 versus 24. But either way, you still get that Coyote V8, which is pretty dang nice. If you're looking for walkthroughs on the technology, like how to use the steering wheel, cluster, the media screen, things like that, check down in the description of the video. You'll find full walkthrough videos. You'll also be able to find a build link for this specific Mach 1 that I used inside of the video. On top of that, you'll be able to find the contact details for Formula Ford, who were nice enough to lend this vehicle to me for the day to shoot the video for you guys. If you're looking for a Ford Lincoln, you definitely want to check them out. Amazing dealership to work with. There are quite a few things about the Mach 1 that make it unique. There are quite a few things that are going to be kind of stuffed in the vehicle that are going to be standard, that are optional when we look at just the regular GT instead. So we do have our MagneRide damping system, and then we've also got our Brembo calipers, 6-piston calipers there for improved braking performance. Now, when we look at just the regular GT, we could look at the GT Performance package, and that's going to give us a few things like our K-brace and unique chassis tuning and things like that, but those are all standard inside of the Mach 1. On top of that, we've got different handling packages and things like that that give us a more aggressive, meaner look for our front bumper, the splitter there, as well as for the back end for our spoiler. So whether you go for the 6 or the 700 is going to depend on budget and what you care for. Because if you're just looking for a track-ready Mustang, the Mach 1 600 is a really good option because of everything that we're going to find underneath the hood. And then even when we look at the wheels, so we do have different looks that are available inside of the Mustang in general. And even when we get into the Mach 1, but I love the darkness, just the way that this thing looks, it looks beautiful. We've got our Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires inside of this thing as well. So we do have pretty good handling inside of this thing, which you're definitely going to need. But that's where having the MagneRide system really comes into play, because the MagneRide essentially has to do with body roll. So you're going left, right, you're hugging, whatever the case may be. It essentially is going to limit the amount of body roll that you get inside the vehicle. One great thing about the Mach 1 Mustang is that we will have TORSEN differentials standard. It's either going to be a 373 or a 355, and that's going to depend on if you have the 6-speed manual or the 10-speed automatic. So the 6-speed is going to have the 373 versus the 10-speed is going to have the 355 instead. The final drive ratio, so the rear axle ratio, is either that 373 or 355, and that's the number of times that we need the drive shaft to turn in order for the wheels to spin once. So it's either 3.73 times, 3.55 times, etc., in order to get that one wheel rotation. But the higher that number, typically the better launch you're going to get. So it's going to be a matter of what do you need. If you're taking this thing on the track, it might even be worth it to bump it up to a 410 instead aftermarket. But again, it's going to be a matter of what are you doing to it. One cool thing about being a Mach 1 owner though, regardless of how you have this thing built out, is that you do get access to the track attack, which essentially is going to be training on a track so you can really get to understand how to use this thing the best possible way. I think that's pretty dang cool. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. Passed over 20,000 subscribers, which, I mean, that is like mind-blowing and like super humbling all at the same time. So I appreciate the continued support, and thank you so much for finding value in the videos that I've been putting out. So the giveaway winner is going to be announced. It should be in the community tab if it's not there already, but reach out to me on social media if you're that winner. And I've got some other giveaways coming up over the course of the next couple months too. Looking at fuel inside of the Mustang, it doesn't matter if we're in the 2.3 EcoBoost, the 5-liter GT, or the Mach 1. Just regular 87 is technically the minimum manufacturer's recommendation. Having said that, there are a lot of Mustang owners that have commented on my videos in the past, just letting me know about the improved performance they've got running 89 or 91. So the horsepower torque specs underneath the hood are all achieved using a 94 octane. You don't need to use it, it's just that you're going to get the best possible performance out of this thing when you do. So the only one where you definitely need to use that premium fuel is if you're looking at the GT500 instead, but that's a beast like in and of itself. And then with the Mustang, it's going to be an unlock cover. If you ever need to fill up using a jerry can, you're going to find the white spigot that you need inside of the trunk of the vehicle. Towards the back end of the Mach 1, it looks nice. We do have a tiny little deck lid spoiler here with different factory options, going to depend on how you have this thing built out. We do have sequential turn lights inside of this thing, Mach 1 badge right along the very middle, and our backup camera on top of that. We are going to be quad tip exhaust inside of this thing, and we've got the active valve exhaust on top of that, which I always have to run this. It just sounds so good. I love the way that this thing sounds. And one cool thing is that the active valve system is actually compatible with some aftermarket tips too. I know Borla has a few options that are available that work in conjunction with the active valve exhaust. Having said that, If you're contemplating active valve, get it at time of ordering from the factory. There is nothing really reliable aftermarket for a system that works like what the active valve does. So if that's something that you absolutely want, just get it done at time of ordering your Mustang from the factory if you're going for the 23 or for the 24 instead. But I love the little highlight we've got along the back here. It's like this nice weave texture that follows all the way throughout the bottom. Looks pretty sharp. And then looking at the fob of the vehicle, it's straightforward. Because we're in the automatic, we've got remote start directly on the fob, and then we can remote start through the Ford Pass app. For obvious reasons, the 6-speed manual doesn't have remote start. But if we want to, we can easily remote start here. Like I said, through the phone. We can open up the trunk here. There's a button on the inside. And then just underneath, we've got a button there in order to open this up. The one thing that's kind of cool about the Mustang is how much space you actually get inside of the trunk. Golf clubs, if you're a golfer, I am not, but you would be able to get golf clubs in here if you wanted to. We could fold down the seats easily as well if you're in just the regular Mustang. So convertible, you don't have that option whatsoever. But the Mach 1 doesn't come in the convertible, so you could fold down the seats easy enough. Not through the back here. It's got to be done on the inside, but you do have that flexibility. But nice wide, there's really nothing in the trunk of the Mustang. It's pretty stripped down and bare bones. We could lift this bad boy up, and that's going to show us our inflator kit. So whether you get the full size, or whether you get the spare tire, I should say, or you get the inflator kit, is going to depend on how you have this thing built out. We've got our white spigot tucked along the very back there on top of that. But like I said, we do just have the inflator kit here. So if anything were to ever happen to one of your wheels, you technically do have coverage available as a Ford owner. So you do have Ford roadside assistance, and that's good for the lifetime of the powertrain of the vehicle. So the powertrain warranty. So we've got 5-year, 100,000 kilometer coverage in Canada. And I believe that's 5-year, 60,000 miles down in the States. So that's essentially good to help you tow to a dealer. If you need to get a wheel replaced, tow it to wherever you need to at that point, which is pretty useful. Oh, that's better. I love that so much inside of this thing. Oh, I love it. 4-way adjustable headrest. So good. Up, down, back, forward. Create that perfect neck position for you. It's really, really nice. All right, now, here's the thing. These are cloth seats. And I've never actually been inside of the Mach 1 600A package, which this is the 600A. Big difference between the 600 versus the 700 is going to be cloth seats versus leather seats. There are a few other small things on top of that, but it's going to be the noticeable difference, which means that we don't have heated first row seats inside of this thing. So you are going to have to look at the 700 pack in order to be able to get the heated ventilated first row seats. Really, really useful. You do have the option for the Recaro seats instead. So if you want more of like that sport bucket seat, that is available here as an option too, right from the factory. And then obviously doing it aftermarket, there are a ton of different options available. But this is nice. Like we've got our black, just base black interior here. We've got this nice stitching along the door, follows all the way throughout the seats on top of that. And then the wheel has a black unique stitching there too. And that actually is stitched through and follows all the way throughout the dash. We've got our handle, unlock, lock buttons, basic window controls and things like that. Series of different buttons by our left knee, and we've got plus minus in order to adjust the brightness of our cluster screen as well as the Sync 3 media screen. And then we've got a selector switch to figure out what's going on with our running lamps. Typical Mustang styling. We've also got this little hideaway pocket, sunglasses, whatever the case may be, and then a trunk release. But I love the wheel. So nice. So nice inside of this thing. And then because we are in the Mach 1, you do have the fully digital cluster screen on top of that. So it doesn't matter if we're in the 600 or the 700, we're going to have that fully digital cluster screen regardless. And it's really nice. But if you want to walk through on how to use the steering wheel buttons, the instrument cluster, navigate through the Sync 3 media screen, check down in the description. I put together a bunch of comprehensive videos that explain how everything works. But some basic highlights. Left turn stick, exactly that. There's a button in the tip of that stick to turn our lane keeping system on or off. And that's the one that's potentially going to either nudge us into our lane or give us a little bit of a steering wheel shake if we start to enter another lane without signaling. Stick on the right-hand side is for our windshield wipers, control the speed. Because we're in the 10-speed automatic, which, the Mach 1 with a 10-speed. Here's the thing. You technically, like, the computer's brain is going to be able to shift infinitely faster than you're going to be able to. So I can definitely see where the automatic comes into play. But having the 6-speed, like I mentioned it outside, we do have the Tremec 6-speed manual gearbox. So rather than the GetRag D4 you're going to find inside of the regular GT, the Tremec is just like a night and day difference in comparison. So you are going to get that standard in the 6-speed. You've got to pay extra in order to get the 10-speed automatic. So it's going to be a matter of preference, but auto is nice. And like I said, one of the benefits is that we do get paddle shifters inside of the automatic, which beneficial. We want to be able to drop gears as necessary. We've got a series of buttons along the left side to control volume. We've got our cruise control buttons on top of that. Along the right side, a series of different buttons in order to be able to navigate through the cluster screen. But the big ones through the cluster would be our pony mode, and that's going to give us things like the flexibility of changing our ambient light colors. We've also got the option of going through and changing out what's going on with our active valve exhaust. And that's one cool thing about the Mach 1 is that active valve is going to be available standard inside of this thing. Sounds really nice. So nice. I love that track mode. Oh, I love it. It's so good. But super straightforward. And then typical Mustang styling, telescopic manual steering wheel, just by our left knee, or by our right knee, I should say, the opposite left. But this is nice overall. You've got good visibility here. And like even the seats, oh, one cool thing about the seats, we do have power inside of this thing. So it doesn't matter if we're in the 600 or the 700, it's partial power. So we've got forwards, backwards, up and down as power. But then for the backrest, you are going to have to manually adjust that one, do it yourself. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. But the seat is actually, it's not bad, like it's comfortable. Comparatively, like I said, I would rather go for the leather instead to get that heated ventilated option. But the seat here still is fairly nice. The Recaros, I would say, are probably even more comfortable, but the downside of the Recaro seats is that if you get them, you're not going to have the heated ventilated option whatsoever. So even if you're in the 700 pack, you still wouldn't be able to have heated ventilated seats with those Recaros. So going to be a matter of preference, what you're doing with it. If you're going to track it, chances are good you probably don't care about the heated ventilated option anyways. Save yourself a little bit of weight, but your choice. I like it though. This is good. And like, I've got like a surprising amount of headspace here on top of that, like 3.5 inches when the seat's fully down. And I'm 6 feet tall. So like 6'3", 6'4"-ish, you'll probably comfortably be able to sit inside of this thing. And I mean, obviously, if you had the convertible, which you can't get with the Mach 1, it's just the EcoBoost or the GT, we'd be able to open up the top easily. And then that would just give you even more headspace and just opens things up so nicely. It's so nice. We've got our gauges on top of that. So we've got our oil pressure as well as our vacuum gauge. We've also got this like nice spun aluminum look. I like it. I love it. Shoots all the way across. So like it starts off on the driver's side and shoots all the way across through the passenger. And then because we're in the Mach 1, we've got our P2072 chassis badge right next to our Mach 1 badge there, right on the passenger side of the dash, which is great. We do have our glove box here. And then with the glove box, so we do have our main storage there, and we've got like this little hidden storage area there too. Kind of neat. Now, like I mentioned, we still are on the Sync 3 media screen in the 2023 model. It's when we get into the 2024s that it gets upgraded to the new Sync 4 media screen. But the 2024 interior also looks like complete night and day different from the 2023 model. I still haven't seen the new 650, so the 2024 Mustang in person as of yet. So whether you go for the 23 versus the 24, it's a really tricky choice. But looking at it, the 23 is a short production run. Like I think the 24s are supposed to be dropping in July or August. So that means that the order bank for the 23s is probably going to be closed up in the next month or two. It still is, it technically is open for the 24 models though as well. So if you prefer that newer body style and the newer interior, you could put through a factory order for one right now. Really cool. But I mean, it's a matter of preference there. Now, a few things to take into account when we look at the 23 versus the 24. If you're going to be doing anything like if you want to tune your Mustang, so ECU flashes and things like that, to get more horsepower, torque, etc., so unlock truer performance, you can do that right now on the 22s, 23s, previous gens, whatever the case may be. As of right now, there's no solution for the 2024 models. So even the 23s or even 22s that are on the Sync 4 screen, not for the Mustang in general, but for other Ford vehicles. It's an over-the-air update thing, so I don't think that that's been cracked as of yet. But I mean, leave it to tuners. I guarantee that, 6, 12 months, someone's going to find a way to be able to tune these things. Well, the next gen, I should say. But if you're contemplating getting a Mustang for tuning it, you'd probably want to look at a 23 or previous gen, so the 550 body styling instead. But if you're okay with waiting, you like the look of the 650, go for it. Just go in knowing if you're looking at doing ECU tunes and things like that, you're going to have to wait a little bit in order for it to get done. It still has pretty dang good performance in comparison, though. This is nice. This is nice. But yeah, like I said, we're in the Sync 3 system, so let's just do a quick little aux startup instead here. All right, while that's loading up, oh, we've got our pony. So good. I love the digital cluster screen too. Like this thing it looks so good. But the Sync 3 screen, we do have the option for factory nav, but I mean, realistically, you can hook up through either Android or iPhone devices to use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze, which is really useful. But I mean, either way, having factory nav is really beneficial too. We've got base audio, which 94.9 FM.
Tuning to FM 94.9.
Yes, you are. Love it. Ah, so good. Volbeat, such a good song, good band. But I mean, the audio inside of this, the audio is pretty good, and this is just like the base speaker system. We would still have the option for the upgraded Bang & Olufsen, which puts like more in-depth speakers throughout. Just gives us a more like immersive audio experience. So if you're an audiophile, you love audio, you'd want to go for that higher system instead. You could do aftermarket options too, but I mean, that's pretty respectable by itself too. I could take that. But we've got AM, FM, Sirius XM. If you were hooked up just through Bluetooth, you'd be able to stream songs and things like that right from your phone too. So you don't have to worry about hooking up through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You could still do that if you'd like to. And by that, I mean you could go through Bluetooth and things like that. But we've got a series of different buttons for our audio. We've got a tuning rocker, series of different climate control settings. And like, it's kind of neat because we've got some climate control settings through the Sync 3 screen as well. So we've got more in-depth settings than what we're going to find in our center stack here. Phone, factory navigation. The nav is actually fairly responsive here, which is good. Not as responsive as Sync 4, but it's still pretty nice. And then just like a series of different options for vehicle settings, navigation settings, and things like that. We do have a ton of different climate control settings. We are dual zone climate control inside of this thing. We're push button start across the entire Mustang lineup. So it doesn't matter if we're in the EcoBoost, the Mach 1, the Shelby GT500, push button start. Toggle switch, I love the toggle switches though, they're so good. And then we've got a series of different toggle switches that are going to do different things. We've got one for our four ways, for our traction control. We've got one to change out our steering, so whether we have normal, comfort, or sport steering. And then we've got a series of different drive modes on top of that. So normal, sport, track, drag, snow and wet mode, back to normal again. So each mode is going to do something different. It's going to play with the overall driving dynamics. So it's going to change out your shifting points and things like that, just depending on how you have it done. And you can even lock it in for the digital cluster screen to be able to adjust the look and layout of the screen depending on the mode you're in. Like we get into the sport mode, it kind of stretches across. We get into the drag or track mode, and like that changes up the complete dynamics of it too, which is really neat. So it's going to be a matter of preference what you do there, but you could also, with the fully digital screen, you can also lock out to different modes permanently just by going through the different settings icons here. Useful. But as we move down, we've got a traditional USB power point, so USB type A. There also is a regular 12-volt power point down there. Because we're in the automatic, we've got our park reverse neutral drive into a dedicated sport mode. So honestly, if you're in the automatic, if you want the truest performance in this thing, you're going sport mode, you're going sport steering, and then you're also going ideally track mode, but at least your sport mode inside of there too. So for your drive modes, changes up the complete dynamics of the ride. Really nice. Now from there, we do have manual parking brake, a few cup holders that do feature ambient light, and you've got the flexibility of choosing the color of the lighting through that cluster screen. We've also got a little armrest that has another USB type A. There's another 12-volt power point in there. Little pen holder too. Yeah. Over and above that, we've got auto-dimming rearview mirror, which is going to be standard inside of the Mach 1. So it doesn't matter if you're in the 600 or the 700. We've got some base cabin control lights, and obviously this thing is not the convertible, but we would have all of our controls and things like that. If you are in the convertible, if you want to know how to open the top, check down in the description of the video. I've put together a walkthrough showing you how all that stuff works. But for the visor, we've got our HomeLink system. So if you've got a garage door opener at home, little business card holder with a vanity mirror built in, and then this thing is extending out. Not too much, but like realistically, it's probably, yeah, it would be enough to block whatever is potentially hitting my eyes there. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Not too much give there, which is nice, but overall this is nice and comfy. Headrest is good, and I do love that we've got that 4-way adjustable headrest. Is so good, so comfy. I like it. So like I said, going for the 23 versus 24 is a really tough decision. I'm going to wait for the 24 to see what I like, if I like the look of it, love the technology. I love technology, but I was also hoping to be able to build a track-ready Mustang. So could I look at some of the track-ready Mustangs that they're building for 24? Technically, but it would also be cool to be able to easily do ECU tunes and flashes and things like that to get the performance I'd want. So you technically could still just like supercharge the 5-liter and the 24 instead if you wanted to, but no, here nor there. One thing, like this thing does have 2 rows. You're not really going to be able to sit back there. Like it's super uncomfortable, but just for the sake of the review, I'm going to show you what it looks like back there. Oh, this is going to suck. Okay, here we go. Oh my God. All right. All right, so this is the second row of the Mustang. Now, I'm not sitting up straight because if I attempted to, sanctuary, like there is literally 0% chance I'm sitting back here. So, I mean, if I was laying down, maybe, but I would definitely not want to have to go on distance drives myself if I was going to have to be in the second row of this thing. So, having said that, if you've got young kids, like if you've got kids that are, shorter than 5'6", or friends that are shorter than 5'6", they'd be able to comfortably sit inside of this thing. But having said that, I also do have the first row seats up as far as they're going to go. So with the seat back as far as I'm going to go, I mean, like obviously next to no leg space here whatsoever, and then pretty much no heads, zero head space. Like I'm not sitting up straight inside of this thing whatsoever. But if you do have kids, if you've got front-facing, rear-facing child seats, front-facing is going to be a little bit easier. Rear-facing might be a little bit tight, but not impossible. But you've got all of your anchor points and tethers and things like that. So if you've got kid seats, you've got the flexibility of being able to easily install them. Now we could drop this seat down as well if we want to. And then one cool thing about the Mach 1 is that through the factory, you also have a rear seat delete option. So if you actually are going to be tracking this thing, you can get that pulled off right at time of ordering from the factory. Or I mean, obviously just do it yourself afterwards instead. But like I said, short friends, young kids, people you don't like, probably fit in the second row of this thing, not a problem. But anybody that's taller than like 5'6" or needs some leg space, they're not sitting back here. It's more or less just for a little bit of fun. But I mean, feature-wise, there's not really much back here anyways. Like we do have a little pocket behind the passenger side, so a little map pocket. Other than that, that's really about it. And that was a look at the 2023 Ford Mustang, Mach 1 specifically, but the Mustang in general. What'd you think? I'm still so torn on like the 23 versus the 24 because I haven't seen that new 650 style in person as of yet. But I mean, if you're still looking for something classic, Formula Ford in Pickering still does have a few of these things available. So you can find a build link to this vehicle down in the description, their contact info as well. If you have any questions, drop down in the comment section below and let me know. More than willing to talk you through any issues that you might be having. But if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, share it with your social networks, and until I see you next time, take care.